Hey guys, welcome to the Solution Architect channel, and today we're going to talk about DevOps. What is DevOps? What's the processes that you can follow in DevOps? What is the tools that you can use to automate your pipelines? What is it all about? And I'm going to show you also, I'm going to do a series after this. So DevOps, this is just to start explaining what DevOps is all about and the tools we can use. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what is the series and what is the what I'm going to cover part of this series of DevOps, doing some coding, doing some checkings, doing some automated pipelines and things like that. So let's jump into it. Okay, so what is DevOps? The general consensus around DevOps is that you bring developers and operations together, and that's where the DevOps comes from. It's all about automation. It's about automating the process of creating code, checking in code, and then at the end of the day what you want to get to is a fully automated process to take your code to production. And how do we get there? So we start with continuous integration. So what does that mean? It means that you'll always have several developers working on different parts of code in your solution. They check it into a central repository where the continuous integration pipeline will package your code, will test your code, and will build your code and make it ready for deployment. The next part of the DevOps process is continuous deployment. What does continuous deployment do? It's got processes in place to pick up your code and to then configure the servers or the services where this code needs to be deployed to, and then do a automatic deployment to that environment. So now let's go a little bit deeper into what is continuous integration. So I'm going to show you a short process, what it is about. And I will have, like I said, a series of videos that will go more in detail in each of these processes. You need to start somewhere. So developers will make changes to the code and they will check it into a repository. It could be Git, and it could be a GitHub or a Azure Repos repository that will then kick off a DevOps pipeline. This could be a build process, it could be whatever you call that pipeline, but the end goal is to build your code and then to make it available into a package for testing, and then you automate testing. So what you want to do is you want to automate your user interface testing as well as integration testing and things like that. Is your code running the way it's supposed to run? Also part of this, you want to do some code vulnerability checks. You want to do some security checks on your code, and the quality of your code as well. Make sure that your code is the quality that you're expecting, and then make it ready to be published. The next part of DevOps is continuous deployment. Continuous deployment means you need to package your code. It will be either in a container or maybe an exe file, or it will be HTML files or web files that you want to deploy to your website, or it could be even SQL code that you want to deploy to a database. You need, part of the continuous deployment process is configuration. What is configuration? Configuration is to set some settings maybe on a server, or install a package that you need on your server, or do some security settings or changes that you need for your deployment to work successfully. So configuration, there's several tools and there's several processes you can follow to do configuration. I'll go into that detail. Then deployment, you want to publish your code to a website. You need access to that server, or you want to run a SQL script on a SQL database. Or you want to just package your containers for microservices to run, for example. So that physical deployment is copying that executables over to a server somewhere or a service that will be able to operate and run this. One thing that I am very adamant about is smoke testing. You want to make sure that your deployment was successful. For example, if you deploy a web application, you run maybe a Selenium testing job that will bring up your user interface, make sure that your user interface is deployed as expected. The same with services. If you deploy a service, a microservice, you can run some tests to make sure your microservice is operating and it's running in a running status. So smoke testing is very important when it comes to continuous deployment. So there is a few DevOps platforms available. I'm only going to cover one or two. I'll probably cover Azure DevOps and Jenkins for you. I have not have hands-on experience on AWS code build yet, but these are the different platforms to build out your continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines that utilizes different type of tool sets to be able to get to a fully automated pipeline. So what is the automation tools that you can use? Now, I want to just stress this out, that DevOps is not just about tools. It's also about making sure that you've got the correct processes in place. Your developers know what to do, your testers know what to do, your users know what to do, your operations people are involved as well in that processes as well. I'm not going to talk about that detailed processes right now, right here. I'm going to focus on the tools. First of all, you need to have a tool that the developer uses to be able to do some coding, like Visual Studio Code, using C# or using Java. I'm not going to cover anything else than C# in my videos, but I might cover some Java, JavaScript, things like that in a later stage in some other videos. Source control is very important. In a DevOps pipeline setup, you need to have a local source control that you can check in your code, such as Git, and then you need to have a centralized source control environment where all developers can upload their code, and where a build integration process can kick off that build process to build your code into executables. And you can use Azure Repos as well, and there's others out there like Bitbucket as well. Then you have a build process in your automation, and you can use tools such as Docker if you've got a container that you want to deploy. You can use .NET Core command line environment to build your code as well. You can also use MS Build if you've got anything else that you want to build in .NET. You can use Maven and Apache Ant for any Java type of builds. The next is testing. I want to emphasize in the importance of having automated tests, because what you're trying to do with automation is eliminate any human errors. So it's very important to select your right tools. I don't have everything in here. I just want to show you Selenium for UI testing, NUnit for testing on C# components and applications, JUnit for Java applications, Sonar Cloud for code quality checks. You can use Sonar Cube as well. And then check marks for any security vulnerabilities that might be in your code. Next is configuration. What is configuration? Like I said earlier, it's very important if you want to make changes to a service or a server, or you want to maybe install a package to be able to run your code on. Maybe you want to install Apache to run a web service, things like that. And you can use tools such as Ansible, Puppet, Chef, and you can also use a scripting language in PowerShell, or you can use Python. The next thing in automation pipeline, you want to deploy your package. You want to have tools available to be able to copy a file maybe to a server. You can use things like SSH, you can use npm, you can use NuGet package to package your code for you. You can use Azure App Service Deploy. If you've got containers that you want to deploy using Kubernetes, you can do that. And you also can use Azure Container Registry Services. And lastly, but not least, and very important, is your smoke test. You want to make sure that your application is running as expected. For a web application, you can use Selenium to do some UI testing, make sure that everything opens. You can also do on Azure command line type of smoke tests, make sure that your service is deployed or the status is up and running. You can use normal command line as well to do some smoke tests. Okay, so what will I cover in the DevOps series? I will create several videos covering things like code in Visual Studio and how to use Azure DevOps. So that will be the platform I'll start with first, is using Azure DevOps to configure Git and how to then publish code to the Azure repos. I'll do some automated testing using Selenium and as well as NUnit. And I'll use the Azure DevOps platform to set up a build pipeline, including some of those automated tests. And I'll use Python to write some scripts to do some configuration on a server. And then I'll create a release pipeline on the Azure DevOps platform to release code and packages to a Windows server and a Linux server. The second part of the series will cover Jenkins. So I'll also use Visual Studio Code to check in code using Git and GitHub. And then I'll also write some automated tests, and the same test that was done for Azure DevOps, we'll just use the same ones, implementing that in Jenkins, and then create some continuous integration pipelines, as well as using Ansible maybe to do some configuration on a server. And then we'll create a deployment pipeline on Jenkins using a release to a Linux server using SSH. But don't go away, because if you follow this series, I'm going to ask some questions at the end of this the DevOps pipeline series, and then also at the end of Jenkins. So next week sometime, I will get I bought something, and I will then show you guys what I'm going to give away. So if you have the answers correctly, which will come out of the series, I'll post you that giveaway for free. And thank you for watching, and please subscribe, and please click the like button, and share if you like my videos. Thank you very much. See you next time.